They were going to have football start in March in the state of Minnesota
Mm-hmm.
when the ground is still frozen, and legally
Mm-hmm.
you can't play on frozen ground. So their solution was to put everything bumped out, so then your spring sports would go into the summer, way into the summer, and then so then all of our spring sports would have been impacted as well, especially with seniors and juniors, looking for opportunities. They'd already be leaving, going out to college, our seniors, and they wouldn't have been able to finish out their spring seasons, had our fall season moved um, to the spring, and then they would have gone into summer. So it just didn't seem practical. So I visited with the gal that did her thing, and she goes, hop aboard any sites on Facebook that are already starting a movement, get on as many platforms as possible to, get something rolling. And I looked and looked that day, and I could not find anything. And I know sometimes you have to look by specific name, but I looked, through, journalism stuff. I looked all kinds of ways. And I finally just said, I think we got to start something here.
I'm on the road again, half drunk with a lit cigarette. I don't know when I'll be back in this town. At least that's what I tell her. Baby, I'm just saying, maybe I just think too much. I'm leaving in the AM, baby, are you saying? I know that you drank too much. And this is what she said to me. I'm just your ordinary fuck. There's nothing special about me. I still bump out more night when I get drunk. I'm just telling you, I'm not playing you. I just wanna be the real me around you. Real me around you.
Don, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of give a quick resume of who you are? Because I feel like you'd be better at that than me. I feel
All
like I
right.
stumble over that a lot of times, and
Okay.
um, you know who you are. So
Right. So Don Gillman, I've been married to my husband Brian for 28 years. He's a retired volunteer firefighter with our Dassel Fire Department, and a business owner. We own a manufacturing company with our family
hmm
for Portadoc. And
yep,
so it's a great business and great employees. We
great
have
product too. I'll say.
great product, thanks. Yeah, since 1966, his dad started that company. So it's been around for a while in the Midwest.
Absolutely. And then, so what drew me to you? Some people actually, I've had three people say, "Hey, interview Don Gilman," and then also let them play Minnesota. And also, since you're running for a Minnesota House seat, set District 17A, if I'm
Yes.
correct.
Yep.
Okay. And do you want to take us on like a kind of a COVID timeline and kind of what that journey was from
Right.
where you kind of had a disgust at where things were heading and how you wanted to make a change because
Right.
you felt differently than kind of what was being put out?
So it must have been, I believe, in September of 2020, or the end of August or the beginning of September. It was the beginning of September of 2020. Still just so sad that we hadn't started football yet, and volleyball was not happening, but the other sports were, fall sports were, and so a friend just tagged me in another gal's post from Louisiana that their sports, their football just came back. And so in Louisiana, a gal she's just powerful. She actually wrote a letter to the governor, and that letter went viral, and then things just kind of started happening. So she took a very political route of just pleading for the kids of Louisiana, and those moms got together and rallied, and it happened, and they got their sports back. And again, through getting your sports back, there are so many in certain states across the nation. Things could be more common sense approach, and you know, there were less limitations and restrictions, where in other ones it was complete lockdown and some crazy, in my opinion, things set in place. They were going to have football start in March in the state of Minnesota
Mhm.
when the ground is still frozen, and legally
Mhm.
you can't play on frozen ground. So their solution was to put everything bumped out. So then your spring sports would go into the summer, way into the summer, and then all of our spring sports would have been impacted as well, especially with seniors and juniors, looking for opportunities. They'd already be leaving, going out to college, our seniors, and they wouldn't have been able to finish out their spring seasons, had our fall season moved um, to the spring, and then they would have gone into summer. So it just didn't seem practical. So I visited with the gal that did her thing, and she goes, hop aboard any sites on Facebook that are already starting a movement, get on as many platforms as possible to, get something rolling. And I looked and looked that day, and I could not find anything. And I know sometimes you have to look by specific name, but I looked, through, journalism stuff. I looked all kinds of ways. And I finally just said, I think we got to start something here. Because I had seen in Michigan, they had started to let them play Michigan. And there was different ones that had started different things. So, or let them play. So I just started a little Facebook group called Let Them Play Ammon. I got a little nervous. Like, what are we going to do? What's the next step? It was just one person on it, and it was me. And by the end of a month, I think we had, well over 15,000 people.
Oh wow.
And within the next month, we were up in the 20 some thousand. And it was just, so that week, it was like go time. I knew that we had to talk to some reporters. And the biggest thing that I wanted to do that was different than a lot of things that were happening at that time was keep our page neutral, even though it was very political. In my opinion, a very political reason that things were halted and stopped, and there was unnecessary lockdowns happening. If we stayed away from slandering our leadership that we have currently in Minnesota, we could get more people to lock arms to get things done for our kids. So we
Mhm.
kept the kids at the center the entire time. It wasn't about me. It was always about the kids. And I think that's why we found success. I mean, really, truly. So we got up to over 26,000 people. News reporters were in our porch the next day. Um, and it's just sometimes who you can talk to just to get the word out. Got a hold of some people at the Minnesota GOP that helped us, get some word out to press. And that weekend there was a rally that was already scheduled at the governor's mansion, and we hopped aboard that and went and rallied, and every news station was there, helicopter, and the word just
Mhm.
spread like wildfire. So I got some admin ladies that were moms that were amazing, just protecting our site from you know trolls.
Mhm.
I didn't know there was such a thing
Right.
until you start something like this, and then you realize that some people have a lot of time on their hands. So
Right.
anyway, it was fantastic, and we just started like coming together, and it was just beautiful, and it exploded. I mean, it was great. I mean, there'd be 100 people hopping on within 20 minutes. It was just my phone was blowing up, so we needed people to help me just get the right people that would come on and get some questions that they'd answer to make sure they're legit, and it was good.
For sure. Yeah, and I kind of like what you said about we needed to lock arms because there was slander, and I think it, we're kind of in a polarized time where
Yes.
we're so divided in our ideologies, but
Mhm.
I it's just politics have just become slam culture, and
Yeah.
it's been cut and paste what this person said and put this in a
Mhm.
video and slanderize them and everything, and some of it's slightly warranted where people are saying just outlandish
Yeah.
things that are just some untrue, and then
Mhm.
some just not stately. I remember growing up and being like a politician, somebody who even if they think it, they're not going to say something just totally outlandish and bash
Right.
each other. But here we are,
Right.
here we are. Um,
Right.
but what kind of criticisms did you guys face? Because I'm guessing
Oh, it was unbelievable.
it was, yeah.
So, anything from, me and tweets were coming out to people saying, here's where Dawn lives, and she'll say that she's, here she's a anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, and she'll say she's not racist because she's adopted black children.
Yeah.
But, that begs to differ. And so, things like that. I think that was like probably the hardest is when my address was thrown out there. And this was a guy that was a part of a big organization that, in my opinion, does not breed togetherness. It breeds more divisiveness. And it's based upon race. And it's just, that was probably one of the times I was scared. I'm grateful that we can protect our home, and I believe in the Second Amendment. But that still does not give you protection when they're calling you out. And so, again, I just had to figure out how to let things just roll off my back. One thing I'll say to our media, they did an excellent job, even if they felt differently. A lot of questions were spun towards me, trying to evoke me to say something that would be like, see, she's reckless. She's not caring about our kids' safety. And that was I don't know what word I'd use, but that was a bent that was coming my way. And again, I would, talk to him about the obituaries that I've gotten of kids that were already, had already lost their lives by suicide, the mental health issues. I mean, parents, hundreds. I mean, I've gotten thousands of messages. Our team did around the mental health aspect. This is the first time I've seen my son smile or get excited or come out of his bedroom because kids were on their computers doing school.
Right.
And, and so many had lost their last half of the year before. And anyway, so I just kept looking at, the risk, the reward is going to outweigh any risk. And just looking at actual science. And I was in the medical profession before, and just every year we did OSHA training. Every year we knew, and this was in the dental world, this is what a mask can do. And you have to change it after so many, minutes or half an hour. And anyway, so then when the masks, then, we'd get something thrown our way, like, okay, we're going to start sports again. And it was a monument. It was a great day. The Minnesota State High School League looked at everything, and then they changed their opinion based on what they were getting from the Minnesota Department of Health.
Right.
And so, so things just, you'd feel like you'd take 2 steps forward and there'd be a step back. And so it was a full-time job, for at least, I'd say, a good year and a half.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was constant. Right. Our reporters were great to put things out there. I built some relationships with different reporters, and I were refreshed because I was not, stating some of, my obvious opinion on some things. And it wasn't that I was lying, but we stayed just to the mission of our kids. And that's, I think, was refreshing for everybody. And that's where I had people from all walks of political life hopping aboard, locking arms with us. And I think we can do that in life. If I have something that I believe, is my conviction, it doesn't mean I can't really love my neighbor and serve others, together.
For sure.
And I think it creates community, it creates togetherness. And that is what we were so desperately looking for. Everybody was.
For sure. And I think just we've gone down a weird rabbit hole of the only medium to talk is via internet. And it's a totally different conversation, even with somebody you disagree with wholeheartedly. If you're face to face, you can find common ground face to face. Over the internet, you can really just you can watch people's fury run wild, and then you separate yourself further. I hope we get back to that, because this world of Zoom calls, I think it's going to destroy the way we uphold relationships. But like when you were going through the process, what were some of the conversations that were on the side of we don't want kids to play sports? What were some of the reasons um, the health department had to say, here's why we don't think kids should play sports? When I recall at the time, I'm not sure if we had any um, even child deaths, or it surely wasn't in the state. It surely wasn't. That wasn't the age group
No,
to be worried about.
no,
Were they saying, well, but they'll bring it home and then they'll do this and that, and
yes,
just kind of not giving you the freedom?
right.
Is that kind of
So
what?
that was a big thing. And again, if we recall, and this is beautiful that we're talking about this because we get amnesic. If we weren't personally impacted, if
Mm-hmm.
our business was not shut down, if we did not, have a loved one die,
Mm-hmm.
due to complications from COVID, if we have all these things that didn't happen, people get a little bit of amnesic of a couple years ago of what actually really really truly happened. So anybody with school age kids, and let's say there's parents both working jobs, they had to get really creative to figure out how are you going to leave kids home all day long and
Mm-hmm.
to do their school and not be fighting and make sure they eat, make sure all these things are happening. Um, so the Minnesota Department of Health really took the stance, from the information that was coming down from our federal government. And there would be videos that would come out, commercials that would come out showing, they'd take somebody that's outside in the cold, and if they put a mask on, like the vapors or would go be dispersed. It wouldn't come straight out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
They were in literally. I watched OSHA because I was on the OSHA website. I watched their guidance and talking about masks and things like that, and then all of a sudden it flipped and changed. It was a taken out common sense approach that I've been taught my entire life through going to dental school, being in the profession. Then all of a sudden everything's changed, and a cloth mask is supposed to do something, which really it did nothing, except continue to promote, I believe, a narrative that we're doing something, which is, again, we look at social media, we look at, the media, or just how there's been influence that's been just, it's been a progression the last 10 years, and what's gone on to make things happen for people, how they listen and how they're influenced. And so it's out of love and compassion that people did these things to protect people.
Mm-hmm.
But I just knew, and we had such a strong conviction based on science, based on truth, that this is doing nothing, to help
Right.
stop the spread of a virus.
Right.
You'd look on a package of a 3M mask and it would say there, this does not stop viruses.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it magically does. And so, um, again, we worked on our mental health, physical health, and we knew that if we got kids out playing and together, and we use common sense. Another thing that was thrown our way is that we're not going to get our kids tested. We're not going to test our kids. We're not going to test our kids to, and then we're going to, be spreading it and people are going to die. And, some people would be that they wouldn't. I'm guessing maybe some families didn't test their kids, but in order to play, it went back to local control areas, different government areas. Like, one school might do something differently than another school, and then that would breed problems too, because then you might wear masks here but not there, but kids got to play again. So, I would say that was another thing that would just kind of, that was a big message coming our way, and how dare we want to promote something like this. So then I started looking at other states that were finding success, and that's where we just kept pulling back. The data is just, I did meetings on Zoom with our government officials, and just met with the Minnesota Department of Education, Department of Health, and just kept pleading with them to really look at, these kids are desperate to get back in school, and to get at it again. And so again, they got to do that, but then they got to play with masks on. So there was some hard things that we had to, huge hurdles that we had to keep jumping over
For sure.
as
Yeah.
kids did.
I recall, so it was different in every state, like you said, and I recall Wisconsin having the wrestlers had to wear masks, but they shook hand, and then they couldn't shake hands, which I think Minnesota was too, but it was something like, okay, you don't shake hands, and then you bleed and sweat on a guy for
Yes.
6 minutes.
Yes.
It just it just seemed like, okay, just take the mask off. If both
Yes.
parties are willing,
Yes.
that's just where I go to, like, my own personal freedom of well, I lost my dad during COVID, not to COVID.
Okay.
And so I know very well personally how to, try to be because he would have died of COVID. He was just immunocompromised
Yeah.
from dealing with cancer for years. And
Mm.
so we had to wear masks, and we were
Yep.
very aware, but we were always aware because you go to Mayo, you go to
Yep.
like a cancer section, and yeah, you just have to wear masks. Well, but even still, you saw stuff online, or people have had said things to me that was like,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to kill your grandparents or your parents or whatever? And it's like, no, but you can't go from A
Mm-mm.
to Z.
No.
And we'll be safe here. And my dad has his own choices that he can make because it's himself. And
Right.
don't try to mandate or be the
Mm-hmm.
jurisdiction over somebody else's mind. I always say, like, there's no jurisdiction over the truth. You can't just own the truth
Right.
and then tell people, well, I said it, so this is what it is.
Correct.
Because there were facts that just, there was facts and real science that truly didn't add up to what was being said. And if you disagreed with it, you almost had to, like, look left and right
Right.
before you spoke.
Right.
And I never thought America would be like that. It's we're one of the very few countries that has, like, an unlimited free speech truth thing. But with the
Yes.
cancellations to people,
Right.
um, that dampened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go back and look at a million people that face some consequences because they didn't believe in one thing or another just from their own ideology. Except,
Right.
I always just, like, I'm kind of an independent. I like to just have my own thoughts, and
Yep.
then that's the way I'm going to vote. My own thoughts. I'm not going to be party
Right.
driven. But it seemed like there was sides taken, and
Right.
wherever the wind went,
Yep.
that's kind of how things were going. But
So we were able to navigate that through Let Them Play, and I think it was just a real life civics for kids across, especially the state of Minnesota. But what we were doing and how we were finding success here, and then teaming up with, Cross Castle Law Firm got involved, and some generous donors got involved, and tons of people gave, so we could then ultimately pursue truth. And that's through sometimes lawsuits. It's how you get your facts, how you get the emails, how you get discovery is through lawsuits. Never thought I'd be involved in one of those like that. But great, just grateful that we were able to help find out the truth. And the truth is that our current leadership that we have right now was playing politics with our kids. They were blaming our kids for the long-term care deaths. They were blaming our kids for spreading this virus, and they were using marketing teams trying to figure out how they could make that story true, and how they could keep stopping things, and it had a mental and physical toll on lots of kids. We know that sports and activities boost kids' self-esteem. They learn about perseverance. They learn how to navigate having a coach they might not agree with. They learn how to have another set of eyes, like how to work together as a team. Or if it's an individual sport, they learn discipline and commitment. And that goes into our careers. It goes into being a great mother and a father, or a good auntie and uncle someday. It creates, this toughness and mental toughness. So it wasn't just about like, oh, I want my kid to get a scholarship for football. This was about something so much bigger. I was a bench rider in basketball. But I worked out and I helped help make Hall of Famers at our little school, just because how hard I practiced. Because I wanted an opportunity to play, but I didn't quit. And I'm
Hmm.
glad. That's one thing I'm super proud of. I mean, do I wish I would have had more time? I'm in my late 40s right now. I don't think about that, but I
Hmm.
think about how your practice partners, your scout teams, your people that still suit up, even though they know they might not hear their name called, that togetherness and that brotherhood or the sisterhood that kids face, like, and we're lacking that in our country right now. Where,
Hmm.
like, you talk about just like the polarized viewpoints, and so I feel like this has just spurred me on now to pursue bigger things. And we have 5 kids, 2 biological and 3 adopted, and our senior that just graduated will be moving him out in about three weeks or so to Montana. He's going to go play football at Montana
Hmm.
for the Grizz,
Yeah.
and it's exciting. It's
You
wonderful.
guys got any trips planned for games and
Oh
stuff?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and he'll be on
And
TV.
he'll
He's
be
like,
redshirting, or do they
we
know?
don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. They
Okay.
said they think that Eli will be one of the best running backs that they've had come in to
Well,
the
awesome.
program. They're so excited. So, he had other opportunities to go to other programs, bigger programs, different programs, but he fell in love with the land
I've heard that school's beautiful.
and the people and the community, and just he said it just
Yeah.
felt like home. And their
Yeah.
coaching staff, they say what they do and they do what they say. So that means a lot to him. So I told him to follow his heart, and so it just happens to be a long ways away.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you kind of said we've lost some things, like our country has kind of gone soft in our mindset. If you look at how our short life of our country, the
Right.
patriots that came over and a small amount of people fought their homeland for the right to live away and then create what we have. And then we get to where we are now, and adversity is something we avoid, whereas that's nothing builds you more than
Correct.
I've learned far more from a loss or a strikeout, or
Yep.
you know, far more than any win, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But what um what so it seems very obvious what got you into politics, but have
Mm-hmm.
you always thought of politics, and have you always thought
Yep.
of being a politician and getting into that field, or?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was so my husband, when we got married back in 94, he had every Monday night he'd be at the fire hall. He joined the fire department. So I had Monday nights free, and there was a need for a city council member. And I was like, I will do that. So I was the youngest female that took over in the state, that took over a term. I was 20 years old, took over
Mhm.
like a 2-year term just to help and learn. And I learned more, and I ended up, going another 4 years till we moved out into the country, and I had to resign. But I learned more in that 6 years about like just government, local government, just different policies, how things work, questioning our auditor, like looking at actually taxpayer dollars and seeing how some things were not spent wisely, and how, so I started questioning things and just seeking to understand, and would say no when a bunch of the guys were like, who is this girl? What is she
Mm,
doing? And so, kind of, I think it was just the best education. And I'd encourage anybody, if they're young, old, I mean, wherever you're at in your life, figure out how you can serve on a board. And we know now more than ever, our school boards, our curriculum boards, that to figure out what can go into the school and not go into the school, our county commissioners, being on a police board, a nursing home board, all of those things matter, and they make a big difference. And so, something that I've learned along the way, I homeschooled my kids for 10, 11 years, and then some have been in public school, and is like only 5% of people feel comfortable talking, public speaking, or are talking. And so
mhm.
we have to flood the 5% with truth, and
Right.
wisdom, and not just our truth, but just the truth.
Right, right.
not
Right.
my not my truth, the truth.
Right.
And so I learned a lot. I learned how to have a thick skin. I was excited. I learned how to take, phone calls that were not fun phone calls, and to show up for things. And so I've said my entire life, I love politics. I love elected officials that are not career politicians
Right.
because they stay connected to their roots. They stay
Mhm.
connected to the people. So I do believe that there should be term limits on some things
Oh, for sure.
nationally,
For
and
sure.
it's for the betterment and it's for the good of our nation.
Right.
It's so not just
I
just
don't trust anybody unless they believe in term limits, because
Yeah.
that's what I like to see is somebody like you going from the private sector into that.
Yeah.
Because there are people that have never made a dollar. You know what I mean? It's public to public to public. In order to pay
Right.
taxes, somebody's got to make it.
Right.
You guys got to produce docs in America, pay taxes, they get
Right.
paid. If nobody's doing that, we're putting money in our left pocket, taking out and putting in our right pocket.
Correct.
We're going to run out of resources. But I would say a lot of people don't think about that. It's basic economics. It's basic, but I
Right.
just think a lot of people just think the paychecks in the mail, the money's just coming from somewhere, whatever. But I like to see that.
Yeah, I grew up very, like we grew up in poverty. And so, even back in the day, like to even think about going into a gas station and buying something besides gas at a gas station was not wise to spend your money
Right.
that way. It's different now. I do things differently now, but I still have that mindset of, just looking at, when we limit the overreach of government, and that's even through spending and different things like that. It
Mhm.
it impacts our whole nation, like not just our state or locally, but um, there needs to be more checks and balances. And so one of our lawyers that helped us with Let Them Play, his name is Ryan Wilson. So directly from Let Them Play, two lawyers that are common sense lawyers are now running for office. One is
Oh.
Harry Niska. He's running. He got the endorsement for his district for House of Representatives, and the other one is Ryan Wilson for state auditor. And
Oh.
I'd encourage everybody, put him down. It's a thankless job, but it's a much needed job. And he's very much across the board. He seeks to understand, and there was just things. So many people gave their time and their talents for the kids, and he's incredible too. And then myself. So I got called once our area was redistrict. Because of the success we found with Let Them Play and the relationships that I personally made and that our team made. And just kids, like I kept encouraging kids, hey, you're going to turn 18. Hey, you 18-year-olds, get out and vote. Get to know your school board members. Get to know, encourage, people that spoke up and got things to change. You don't need to be violent or, angry or disrespectful, but you can serve.
Mhm.
And again, our veterans, I mean, just the appreciation that the people that fought so hard for our country, and just some of the things that have come their way that has been just, horrendous.
Yeah.
And sad to me. Just figuring out how we can help young people get involved and be participating. So there's been so many. There's one of our, his brother was impacted, and this young man, he's running for House of Representatives, and there's just so many great stories that have come out of this. So three of us that have been involved with Let Them Play are now feeling a call to serve at a bigger level. And
That's
to bring
awesome.
that common sense and just basic truth, and not being scared to back down to, I'm not looking to I know I'll build more relationships, but I have my core group of friends and family that I trust here. And I'm not looking for, you know, for a handout. I'm looking
Mhm.
to make a difference. And they're really believing that the house could really make a difference this next couple years, and make some really big impact. And so for Minnesota, and it would be my honor to help serve that way. So there'll be sacrifices made here when mom's not
Mhm.
home every night, but I'm excited to hopefully get in there and get her done. So,
Right. Well, what do you think are some of the biggest problems Minnesota's facing right now?
well, I mean, we all can see at the gas pump what's
Right.
happening, and I mean,
Right.
and it's not just at the gas pump. It's filling up, tanks for the winter to keep your home warm. It's grilling. It's so many things. People are going back to work, which is very great,
Mm-hmm.
but things, wages and inflation. And just the safety piece is so huge. Just the blatant disregard, and even how it's coming into the suburbs of people's, their lives and their safety. And we saw what happened July 4th down in the cities.
Mm-hmm.
It is real.
Right.
I mean, I know people that are leaving in droves. We're in the top 5 taxed states in the entire nation.
Mm-hmm.
So we have wealthy people that are leaving here, not just for warm weather, but they're leaving here for tax breaks.
Right.
So,
And safety, probably,
and
for that
safety.
matter.
It's huge. It's huge. And there's beautiful states all across the whole nation. Minnesota has got there's so many pieces of it that is just unique and special, and people love the seasons. I could totally do
Mhm.
without that really cold spell in the winter, but again, our roots are here, our family's here, but I mean, I'll be willing to move too someday,
Right.
or have dual, you know, just and for a tax break. And so,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it be great to capture people that are in a higher tax bracket to stay here, that they feel safe here, that they feel that they can, survive the winter,
Oh, absolutely.
and then but keep the money here because it's being spent wisely instead of being put into programs that are not successful, that millions and millions of dollars are getting put into people's pockets that are not being audited, that are not being looked at, for and it's just it's heartbreaking to see that corruption's happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Where do you see our political, even on a national level? Where do you see our? You think we're going to be heading in a right direction, or do you think we're going to really bottom out to open people's eyes and then?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a good question. From my experience, again, I think it's just how I was raised, with faith, and also just overcoming some adversity as a young kid and young adult. I think that we have to just look at freedom and what does that look like for people. Um, and I am very concerned the climate of our country, but
Mhm.
I'm also very confident I'm very confident in the patriots and the people that their eyes are open to truth, and just how we can hopefully figure out a way to come together, and on some things I think, and it maybe is party lines. It's all the graphics that get put out, and it's all like where people are being swung to put their attention to divert us from what's actually happening. And that's where I think we have to personally be dialed into, for me, I have to be dialed into God, and it's very evident how things are. And when you look at just the taxation, and just it feels like blasphemy. Like, it just that people will rise up. They're gonna rise up. We're a melt. I mean, America's a melting pot of so many different cultures and beliefs, and people come here. Again, like, I had a gal that came and did one of the endorsement speeches for the endorsement day convention. She gave a minute and a half talk on coming from another country and how her dream was always to be an American citizen. So she
Mhm.
legally came here, and she's gotten her citizenship, and she's gone about it. And people thought that was maybe risky to have somebody that immigrated here, but the majority of us that live here have all had ancestry that's immigrated here from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And it's beautiful. And some have come here not on their own accord. Past, people have come here under, being property, and
Right.
it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
um but again, a huge thing that our family believes, we have, two black sons, a biracial daughter, and then our two biological daughters. And so I've had lots of big conversations around this as well, that critical race theory will
Mm-hmm.
bring more division.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat in on a lot of meetings and done a lot of things looking at what they want to cut out of teaching kids in school, our history, um, and then bringing some things in. I do believe more needs to be brought in about our history in America, but
Mm-hmm.
how it's spoken. Like my sons would never call themselves oppressed. They've not been raised oppressed. They've been raised with free will thinking, and you know and to think about things, and how they show up in life. There's consequences for our actions, all those things, and to not be raised up um in a mindset that they're less than, and that there's oppressors and oppressed. And so I will fight hard for that. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that's very huge for me, because I believe that that would set us back. It'll set families back. It'll create more um, division instead of togetherness on and how things can be done. I was just endorsed by the MPPOA and the Minnesota Gun Owners, the caucus, and they endorsed me as well, because I believe in, our police are needed for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe there needs to be more things for our police, mental health help for them? There needs to be more things, but not more regulations.
Right.
We need to do more to attract in more peace officers and people coming to serve.
Mm-hmm.
We can see that at every town, little city around. It's hard to get firefighters and first responders and people going into paramedics. So figuring out a way that we can nationally and even stately, like, figure out how we can support the mental health of their daily grind. And I
Yeah.
think that's huge, because right now I know that there's young people that are not pursuing, being a police officer or peace officer, and they're going into another profession because it's a tough climate. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe our police are protected in Minnesota because of some of the changes that have come down.
For sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
And you mentioned just um, talking to kids and, teaching history. And yeah, we just need to teach the truth, whatever it is. And we all know we're better off for knowing what happened and why it happened and this
Hmm.
culture, that culture. So what I always just think is strange is um, from the bits I've looked into CRT,
Yeah.
critical race theory, is like we just really shouldn't teach kids that they're oppressed. You should never tell a kid, no, you can't. You're not able to do this, because of your religion, your skin color, you're an immigrant.
Right.
You just killed a dream, you know?
Yep.
If you tell somebody, no, you can't because of this, you totally killed their spirit. You just could have ended, a political career, a sports career,
Yep.
and people do it so much. They tell kids, no, you'll never be that. You can't because of this. And I just that's a crime. And
Hmm.
you see it more and more every day. And kids are kind of grandstanded as like political pawns, and it's like what are we doing?
Hmm.
That's never gonna
Right.
it's never gonna pan out for anyone.
Mm.
It's but but well, I guess I guess we touched on a lot of things, but
Awesome.
I really appreciate you having me here. And then
Yes.
I thought this was fun, and I think you're gonna get voted in. That's gonna happen. I can't imagine a candidate better than you. That's so
Thank
well
you.
rounded, well versed. I like that you're from the political or the private sector and
Hmm.
term limits. I mean, that's
Yep.
that's just honesty,
Yep.
you know. And best of luck.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And if people want to follow along, they can go to
Oh yeah.
gillmanforhouse.com. So Gillman with two L's, and then spell out the word for house.com. And they can follow along if there's updates and things happening. And And I'd encourage everybody that's listening, consider being an election judge. 18 and up if you're a registered voter in the state. We need election judges and we need poll watchers in a big way. So figure out how you can rally, hop aboard, go into a parade, just do whatever you can do to find out. Consider getting out there and supporting people just so we can help our state, heal. Would be great.
Absolutely. Well,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
The real me around you.
Like, hopefully things are smooth sailing and like common sense and just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I just want like an organic, like when you think something's right, it's typically right.
Right.
When you think something's just not quite right, it just transfers to all aspects of life and what's going on right now, like not just in politics, but like the way our country's headed.
Oh
Just
my
the
gosh.
weird mantra, the weird it's a psychosis.
It is unbelievable. And I mean, it is like a time, like, and I just keep telling my kids we were born for a time as this. If things don't feel right inside, you got to keep trusting that, because I believe it's the Holy Spirit. I mean, I believe it's God. I believe, but it's also just common sense transparency.
Right.
Like if things just feel off and you ask more questions and you're being led away from the question, then you got to trust that that's
for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's wild. It's a wild time, and I think the light. I mean, I think people that have truth and knowledge is gonna shine. It's gonna shine, but it's
Right.
gonna be dark days.
Right.